We will be starting with the lecture in a few minutes. The only problem is right now we possibly got a broken mini display port to VGA adapter. So if there's anybody in the audience who's got one of these tiny Mac adapters, yeah, feel free to borrow it to us for an hour. Thank you.
Ik heb deze.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, I have a couple of announcements about changes in the program. Unfortunately, the iPhone talk, which was supposed to be here in this hall at 7 o'clock, has been cancelled. Tonight at 11 o'clock, there will be, again in this same venue, another WikiLeaks panel discussion. And two talks have been switched this afternoon at 4 o'clock. The Tempest for the casual election hacker has moved to this hall, and the relaunch of Bits of Freedom, which is especially interesting for all you Dutch people, please all of you show up, has moved to the Two Envelopes hall. And we need more volunteers, rather desperately, for heralding, for doing stuff, for everything. If you want to volunteer, if you have a couple of hours or just 1 hour, please go to the volunteer desk at Field J. Really, really do it, because we're running out of people. That was the introduction to the side notes. Mr. Roel Verdold, he's working at Radboud University in Nijmegen, the Netherlands. He's been working with a number of other people on the classic MyFair, a RFID chip which is being used for entry in big buildings, but especially for payment transferment systems, as in for public conveyance. It's been hacked left, right, front or center, inside, outside, and he's one of the people who's been doing it, and he's going to tell you something about the biggest mistakes in the classic MyFair. Enjoy the talk.
Still not? Yes? Okay. Well, thank you for the nice introduction and coming all to listen to my presentation. It will be about the MyFair Classic card. It's a card which is actually well, there were more presentations about it in CCC a few years ago. Even last year there was some slides about it. Well, there are more in Boston, DEF CON. There's also talks about. What I'm trying to do is to give an overview, a broad overview of all the scientific papers that are published around the MyFair Classic chip. It is an overview that gives more insight into what actually the attacks mean and what you can do with it, just to give it a more perspective. I'll also give in the end a demonstration of how you can actually recover keys from a card, a genuine card, and do that within, well, a few seconds. Well, I'll give a background. I'll tell a little bit of RFID, but I guess you all know what it is. And if not, I'm sorry, but I'll give you just a head start. And you can always come around on the RFID village. Then I'll talk about the MyFair Classic, the attacks, give a demo, and some conclusions. First, I'll start with a background. Well, who are you talking, or who is talking to you? That is, well, I'm Roel Verdult. I'm working at the Radboud University Nijmegen of the Digital Security Group. And, well, I guess I'm the major person that caused all those security fuzz about the OV chip card, which is the Dutch National Public Transport Card. There was a lot of media attention for that. Yeah, it's because this card is based on the MyFair Classic chip, and the MyFair Classic chip is a kind of, yeah, insecure thingy, which we come to later, of course. Well, because the MyFair Classic chip had so much security problems, and it is used in various systems, which also includes in the Netherlands military bases and stuff, we were, well, reporting this to the National Security Agency and the Parliament, which I did some presentations for. This is actually the MyFair team. There were more people working on it in the end, because yeah, it was yeah, besides all the media stuff, we had lots of influences and things to handle about. I mean, in the middle of the process, we were sued by the manufacturer, which was kind of hard because yeah, it's that you can talk about, but actually when it happens, then, well, it scares a little bit. But, well, we won on all terms, so that's okay. Well, I'll give an introduction to RFID, and that is, well, let's first start with where is it used in. You know it in all stuff, I mean, car keys, tickets for some soccer game, or, well, the public transport thingy, but we all see so much happening around us. But also in the passport, or simple in just by when you buy something in a shop, there is a sticker on and there's an antenna and a chip for the security reasons. But you can play with most of them. But I will just focus on the MyFair card, and the MyFair card is pretty much used. You see there an Oyster card, which is a MyFair Classic card. Well, this is actually what it is. It is a card, and it has an antenna and it has a chip. That is, well, that's all. The chip that can be very, yeah, very intelligent. So it can do various stuff like crypto, hard crypto. But you have also very weak ones, which only send just an identifier. it scales from the one end to the other, and you cannot really see on the outside. So if you're like showing card, oh, is this a very hard crypto card? Yeah, well, I mean it's a blank card or something on it, but well, the RFID modulation is, or well, actually the working is follows. You see on the left, you see the reader, where it's a big antenna, and a big antenna generates a power field. It's an electromagnetic power field, which invokes on the tag antenna some sort of energy. I mean, the tag antenna has a small antenna, but it is in the field of the larger antenna, so thereby it can start up and it can do stuff. It doesn't need any battery, it just uses the power which comes from the field. That's convenient, no battery, water resistance, all the stuff. Well, then you have a modulation, which is the reader is dropping the field, and the tag is like changing, resisting some sort of field, and thereby they modulate bits forwards and back. Well, there's lots of hardware involved, and I'll just show a range of it. Well, the first two, probably you know, really nice hardware stuff made by Hart Welte and Milos. Well, and I guess they're around here. I have not seen them yet, but the Ghost I have worked on. It's a simple tag emulator which costs only a couple of bucks, but it's nice to show a way that you can break security with almost no cost. And on the end of the line there is a NFC device. It's a very normal off-the-shelf stock reader, which I have also here. It costs like 30 bucks, and it's really nice to do things with it. And I will show it later what is actually possible. And the under page you see a hardware device. It's called a Proxmark. It's originally made by Jonathan Westhus, which developed a very nice board. It's okay. It's expensive. It's like $400 or $500, but it has an FPGA on it, which does all the modulation. So therefore, you can modulate everything you want to modulate. You can drop pieces in the original modulation. You look to a protocol and you change it. Like, oh, I want to try if I can do a little bit of the protocol, but not really all the stuff. And therefore, you can really do nice security, let's say, audits on an RFID tag, for example. Well, I'll just show what's normally attacked on an RFID. I mean, it's wireless communication, so everybody, I guess, know the relay attack, but I'll just show it a little bit. And relay attack is that you have, not really a man in the middle, but just a forwarder. It's like the ground station wants to know if a British airplane was in the neighborhood, so it asks, oh, are you British? And you see there behind the cloud is another plane. And that actually forwards it to a real British airplane, and the forward gets back to that malicious plane, and the plane identifies him as a fake to the ground station. Well, that's nice, but that can, I guess, hardly be not allowed on RFID. You can do some countermeasures on it, but it's very hard to get it. Well, then you have a replay attack, and that was part of the fuss, which was about the over-chip card. You have an over-chip card gate, and well, actually what you can do is you can record the communication which is between the gate and the over-chip card. And then I'm talking about the disposable one, which doesn't use any crypto at all. So then it's really easy. Well, actually what you do is you record the communication and you use a device which replays that communication, and by then the gate will open. Well, it's if you look at it as a security perspective, you like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's pretty sure. But most common people really start scratching their head if they see like a different device just emulating another device, and then the gate also opens. Whoa! So that really brought some fuss in from, oh my God. So where are we going? Ah, that's a free trip ride. That's very nice. I will start now over the really MIFARE Classic. It's a smart card which is very much used. It's sold 1.5 billion times, so if you divide it to all the people, let's say on the world, then I guess 1/5 has one. 200 are actually in use right now, I guess, 200 million. And it has a proprietary stream cipher which is called Crypto1. The key length is about 48 bits. That's, well, it looks small, but actually you only can talk to it over, let's say the air, over the R4D channel, and well, then makes it a little bit harder. If you do not know the cipher itself, then you can only try to brute force it online, and that's quite hard. There's some piece of memory actually where you can store something and you can wipe it away, and you can, it's just like a very small USB stick, I guess. And then it carries also a unique identifier, which was originally the ID of RFID. You have radio frequency identification, so it's the ID of the of the card, which shows like, oh, I'm this one. And well, they invented like, oh, it's maybe nice to store some memory in it, so you can store more chips or something, or your value amount which you have on your prepaid transport ticketing card. Well, it's nice to see the under square. It's like in their documentation they say field proven. Well, that's quite nice, but let's see what it actually means then. For security at least. What it is a hardware chip, and you have to use the hardware chip. Well, that was originally the case. For that, you needed a reader, and you needed a chip itself. Then you can talk to the chip like, okay, I want to talk to a MyFair card, and then the chip will has 2 pins connected to an antenna, and then it will use the antenna to communicate to a MyFair card, and then it will communicate to the microcontroller or the computer in the back what it has communicated. Well, at least what you wanted to request. You have to give a key, and then it gives you the answer. But the problem is here that you do not know what the chip does. The chip does some fuzzy things over the air in the field, but you only know that it's actually communicating to the card, but you do not know how or where or when. Well, this was it's maybe a fuzzy slide. It shows lots of fields of memory, sectors and blocks. I guess it's a little bit boring to go into this, but it's nice to see that you have like lots of keys on a card. You have not one key, but you have different keys for multiple applications on a card, and then you can say, well, one is a write key, one is a read key, and well, if you configure that a nice way, you could have very interesting applications, which I did not see in the field actually, but it was possible. Then I'll go to what are really the security features? And these are not really all of them, but I guess the most important one. What they claim to be, or what they actually said, like, what is the security here? Now, they have, of course, that fixed unique identifier. I have to say that's a really manufacturer burnt-in identifier, so you cannot really change that. You cannot really change later on in a test stage. Well, at least that's what they say. So, and I was never able to do it, so until now I have some reason to believe it. But then you have a mutual authentication. The thing is there, the reader is identifying, I know the key to communicate, and the tag is identifying back to the reader, oh, but I know also the key. So both identify to each other that they know the key. There are random challenges, like, okay, you have a really, you need some randomness in the cipher, which is, otherwise you could do the replay attack I showed earlier, and that's, that's boring to even have in your product. Now, then there is a proprietary non-public algorithm, which is, I guess, it was non-public, but at the moment it's a little bit different. I'll come to that later. The thing is that you have also encrypted communication, but it's encrypted with a proprietary algorithm which no one should know, and it is embedded in a chip, so you cannot really look at it or even reverse some EEPROM. you really have to look at the hardware side. Well, then there are some other measures to it's like teasing other manufacturers. Like we make a protocol and we make it ISO compliant, but in the end we change it slightly that it is not ISO compliant anymore because we are sending weird parity bits, which are on network level, well, good defined, but they are used in a different way. Well, that's the hardware implementation. I noticed that already. And oh yeah, there was one more thing to say. They said, well, it's maybe nice that only once the card will send a random number in the clear, and after that it's all encrypted. Wouldn't that be secure? Well, I come to that. Here's an Oyster card. It shows on the screen what it actually does. You keep it in the field. It transmits. The reader actually gives a signal, and the card answers with its own code. On the card, you see there is 10 pound and some key, which the reader, of course, knows, and the card knows. With those combined, you get some kind of well, the transaction actually made, and it's communicating the algorithm, using that Crypto1 algorithm, the encrypted stream back. But the thing is now that this is all happening, but it was all not open and not secure. So we are all like, well, what is with this product? What are the commands to do? I mean, the chip is going to talk to the card, and it gets some answers, but what is it actually saying? Well, if we strip away the encryption, I mean, it should ask like, I want to read something or I want to write something. So that was a challenge. And then we tried to find out what is the authentication about and what is the algorithm actually? Are there obvious weaknesses? Are there some biases? Are there side channels? Are there maybe other cryptographic mistakes? Well, it's very nice because they were. What we started in at our university, we use the Proxmark device I showed earlier. It's the most advanced device we have, and it's actually working pretty well because you can listen to a very low level, and you can even see both sides communicate to each other and then look into what they're actually saying. But the thing is that this is the university entrance, so it's our own door access control system. And, well, that was nearby, so we actually wanted to know what was on our own employee pass, so we just started to toy around with it. Well, what we did is actually tracing. You see there on the left, you see a very simple Omni key that's a commercial reader, and it's a Blanco card you can buy on eBay for less than €1. And, well, in the middle you see an antenna, which looks very, very home and hobby made, but it's actually working very well. So what you see in the other on the bottom there is a trace. Well, it's in hexadecimal values, and it shows some of the things that happened there. I've commented a little bit, but I'll go into that later what it actually means. But you see here that it authenticates, it gets a random number, the tag, the nonce tag, is a nonce of the tag, of course, then, and it's a random number from the card to the reader, and then you have the reader, which actually also gives a random and answers to that random from the tag, and then the tag answers again to the, back to the reader. But I have something weird here, because if you look at this, you see actually that it is not the nonce reader which is replied. You would expect that, like nonce tag, and then the reader shows, oh, I can do something with that nonce, and I'll send it back from the tag. And then the reader sends his nonce, and then the tag should actually say, oh, I can do something with that number from the reader. But what it does something with its own number, which is sent earlier. So that's really strange to see in the beginning, but well, they chose for that for some reason, I guess. I don't know, they didn't say why, I guess. Now, what is a mistake we came around? There are so many cards in the field that are using default keys. That's really worse. I mean, there's so many, if you look at these keys and you try them on your card, on all the sectors and blocks you have on your card, then if you have like 90% chance that it will actually hit some block which is using manufacturer keys. Maybe it's not storing really much information, but if you have at least this, then you can do some very interesting attacks, which I show in the end. Well, system integrators just seem to ignore the warnings which are given by the manufacturer even, that they should use these keys. Well, what is wrong with a random number generator? It's shown by Henry Klotz in the CCC presentation that it was only, you could very easy get collisions if you power up, and actually it's only 16-bit entropy, so you have only 65,000 possibilities, and the thing is that it's really easy to get collisions there, and if you even can count on it when it comes back, you can, well, say, oh, I'll wait for a certain time, so, and now I'm back again on the number I want. Well, that was shown there, and that's very nice, but it's really a mistake in their design. What's another mistake is that what they did is, it's actually a malleable cipher. It's maybe, I guess for the crypto guys on the, will understand, but I'll try to explain it a little bit. You have keystream, a one-time pad, which is a random generator that generates a one-time pad, and that's called keystream. Then you have, on the other hand, you have like plain text, and those are XOR together, and then you have ciphertext. The thing is, if you can manipulate the random numbers, and you can reuse keystream, which is possible because the actually plain text is not involved in updating the cipher itself, the pseudo-random generator in this, then you can actually reuse keystream. It's totally independent on the plain text. So, and that's very interesting because a colleague of mine showed it already 2 years ago to me, that he was able to get information from a card because he listened to a transaction to a gate and a card, and then, well, notice which randoms were used, and then replaying that later on the card and trying to manipulate to get the right random. And when he had it, he can actually query for a different memory block, and then he can read out the card without even knowing the key. Well, that's a pretty much startup, what we had at that moment. Well, it's another mistake is that the initialization of the cipher is kind of weird. They set the key into it, and then they load some information into it, which should be card dependent. You have the UID, which I also already named as the fixed identifier. Then you have the nonce tag, so the random of the tag, and the nonce reader. And those are loaded into to the internal state before it starts generating keystream. But it is not loaded into with feedback from the cipher itself, so that the key will already influences what it's going to update. Now it's loading in that pure, simple, and plain. And that means that you can actually switch with stuff. Like you can change your nonce a little bit. If you're playing the tag, for instance, then you can change your random. You can change the key you are working with, and then it will still work on the cipher. That's what Platz also showed in a CCC presentation, which was, yeah, it's a weird mistake what they made, but they fixed it in a later product, which is, I guess, presented tomorrow in here. The high tag is, I guess, a successor of this one. But well, if we look at the reader side, then there's another mistake. I mean, we came on so many mistakes we couldn't even count. It's like I tried to say here the major ones. The reader does no input validation. It expects that the text gives a random number, but we're able to actually send the random number as we wanted. We wanted, the random number was normally 32 bits, but we were like, oh, if we now just send a random number of 1 bit. And the reader says, well, okay, it's a random number and you have sent it, so that's just what I'm going to work with. So that's a very low entropy for a random number. Thereby the reader really starts leaking information because he's only going to use so small a random number. There's no really randomness in it anymore. Even we were able to send a very long random number, longer than it should be, and you can update the whole internal state of the cipher. Well, that's convenient if you want to manipulate with the cipher values. Well, then I'm going back to that parity obfuscation part. We all know that a one-time pad is something you can lay against a plain text and you get cipher text, but you should do that one time because, yeah, it's a one-time pad. What they did is use a one-time pad twice in certain places and actually in the place of a parity bit. They used from the next byte they are going to send, the first bit of that one is encrypted with a keystream bit. But that keystream bit is also used for the parity bit of the byte before that one. That's a little bit strange when I tell it maybe this way, but the picture shows how it goes. And this means actually that if you know, for instance, you know only the second part, the second byte you know, then you can, you know, of course, the keystream bit there. Then you know, oh, what was the parity there? And there you can say, oh, then I know if it was an even or an odd value. So it's actually leaking again a bit without even have to do that. I mean, it's a weird mistake they made, but well, for us it's kind of convenient, of course, to look at. Then what they actually did is they made a cipher. This is the cipher, and I don't know if you already seen it, but this is a linear shift back register in the top. And then there's some filter function and then produces keystream, and it does it 1 bit at a time. So it shifts 1 bit, it produces keystream, and then again. But as you can see, this part, the left part on the, does not really produce keystream. So that means that if you actually have an internal state and you have encrypted data over the air, which is used to update the cipher itself, and that is done during the authentication, you can roll back the linear feedback shift register, because if you shift 1 bit back, you can get the keystream bit out of it, and that's a really problem, because then you can actually, if they only used this bit for the filter function within it, then you could not guess that bit, but they just left it out, and that means you can roll forward and you can roll backward in the cipher, which is kind of weird, because this gives the opportunity when you have a transaction, you can actually roll back to the earliest beginning, and the earliest beginning of the internal state was the key. So, well, what we then did is we looked better at the cipher, and, well, you notice there some very strange thingy. You notice that it is only connected on the odd bits, and that easily gives a divide and conquer attack. Because, yeah, I'll try it explain it a little bit. It's maybe hard to get it at one time, but you can actually, if you have questions, always come later to me. You generate all the, only 20 bits are used for the filter function, which is a non-linear function, but only 20 bits are used. They are, let's say you take all possibilities for 20 bits, then you shift it 2 times. I mean, let's ignore the other one. So it shifts 1 time, but then you have different bits, so we don't want to know that one. But you shift it 2 times, then you have a new bit, which is announced to this this function, but 1 bit falls off. But you see, 90 bits are the same. So if you have like a range of keystream where you can check on, and you guess like 20 bits, and you shift it 2 times, and you only have like 2 possibilities. Let's say it produces only 1 bit, which is actually the one you want to look for. So that means every time you shift 1 time, you can wipe away half of the extensions, by testing on the key stream you already have. Now, if you do this, you only have to do this for, I guess, 21 times, and that means 21 bits, but you have odd and even bits, so let's say 42, but then you have almost a cipher. For like 64 bits, you have the internal state, and that means the key. So, well, another mistake was the statistical bias, which is in Cypher. Carsten Knoll already wrote about it, that there is an algebraic attack on it when you use certain bits which are not really as independent or balanced as they should be. Because, well, it should be half times true and half times not true. But if it is like, well, in different values, then you learn from it. And if you have more information, you learn from it quickly. And, well, and this cipher is quite weak, so you don't need much. And the Courtois this year showed a very nice way to exploit a card message, an error message which is produced by the card. I will come to that. That is what I'm going to show, what he is going to have to exploit and what we also exploited. Though his way is quite nice. It's a later publication, but it's very interesting to see what actually happens with, if you want to attack a card only. Let's say we forget about all those making traces, getting on a gateway and having to stand there with your tools. And I mean, let's say you can be busted all the times, but if you just want to, in your home suite room, and you want to crack your Oyster card, for example, or whatever card, then you can do the following thing. You can authenticate from a certain block. It will send you the random number back. You can, well, say, okay, I have the information. I have my random number, the reader random number in this way, the tag random number, and you encrypt those. Then but of course you don't know that if you are an attacker, so you just send crap, let's say only zeros. The tag sends back his answer if you knew the key, but in this case it was not really the case. So you have an answer reader and an answer tag. I annotated that for some quite some convenience. What you see, if you don't have the key, that answer tag will not be the non-stack 2 prime, double prime. It's because it will only react to you. It will only like identify himself as knowing the key if the reader also knows the key. But the strange thing what appears here, if the message you sent, let's say all zeros, has a parity okay, then it's going to check if the nonce you trying to prove that you know the key is okay, and if it was okay, it sends back his identifier. If it is not okay, it sends back an error message and encrypts that one. So that's really weird, because you do not know the key, and he says, yeah, you do not know the key, there's an error, but it encrypts that, which you cannot decrypt because you do not know the key. That's really strange. But it's also a very leaking part of this protocol, because this is happening 1 in 256 times. There are 8 bytes, so you have like 2 to the 8 possibilities there. And when this is happening, you can actually exploit it. It's giving away 8 bits of the parity, because the parity was okay, so you can learn from that. And by the way, the error message is 4 bits, so it gives you 12 bits of information about the state by just sending only zeros, crap to a card. So that's really, well, I guess when you do that the right way and you control the random, because that is necessary, you actually have to have a very nice attack, which can work within a minute. Well, if you have, we looked at it, and there was another, I can say, major mistake in it. I want to go back to you to where I first said that after the first nonce is communicated, there is no plain text anymore on the line. It's all encrypted. Well, the thing is, if you know, for example, one sector, one key, then you can authenticate for that one. I mean, this is what happened, and I showed it like 3 times, so this is okay. the card will communicate back to you, and then you both are in a state, and you're going to communicate in an encrypted way. What you're now going to do is you're going to authenticate on a different block where you do not know the key from. So the card will send you a random challenge again. But what is different here? It encrypts that random challenge with the new key you do not know yet. But the randoms are really weak. They are only 16-bit. So you can actually guess that random, and thereby you can actually obtain 32 bits of the key, of the new key. Well, if you already have 32 bits of the new key from a 48-bit key, well, then it's like looking up within milliseconds for the real value you want to have for the other part. So this is actually an attack you can use because so many cards in the field use a default manufacturer key. You have it on somewhere on the sectors, they use it, and when you invoke that first sector, then you can roll over and into the nested authentication, and you get all the keys out of the others. Well, I'm going to show that in a demo. I hope I have time for that because, oh, there is something wrong here that you always see. I have here like a card from the Citibank in Peking, which is probably stores some money value, but you can also ride on the metro there and get some lunch from it. Also, I just put it on this very cheap reader. I have very much of them at the RFID Village to play with if you want, so come by. What I'm doing now is I'm running the script, and actually it's showing that there's a part missing there. Yes. Okay. So actually it shows that it's trying to look for a default key. Oh, and as you see, oh, it's even on the first block. That's convenient. Well, and then it's trying to calibrate on the randoms. I mean, every computer, if you are using a USB stack between, then you have different timings. So you have to calibrate a little bit on the timings there. And when you have the right timings for the nonces, you can predict which nonces are coming. And if you can do that, you can even speed up your attack. So actually, that is what it's doing now. It's trying to see which values and which nonces are used most. Oh, and then it says, oh, okay, well, this nonce is used the most times. It's going to use that one to attack. And thereby you can loop to the screen and actually recovering the keys from the card. And if you look at it this way, then you actually see that it is so easy to break the card. And that's not really what this was meant to be. So, yeah. And you can do this with a very cheap reader, $30, and you can communicate it to it, and you can send just the right values, and it's just giving you, almost shouting the keys to you. So, yeah, I'll say, yeah, I don't have to say anything about it. It's showing itself, I guess. So, well, let's get back to the presentation. Show this. You can do it even. This can all be done in 1 second on a Proxmark because you can control the timing a little bit better. So you can even predict the nonces at the perfect way. So yeah, that's convenient. But okay, it take a minute on this reader I showed, which well, if you want to play with it, toy with it, or even buy it, I have a box with me. So there is. Well, let's get back to that slide of the security we had. Because if we look at the multi-authentication, that's actually not really a very hard authentication. In the authentication, I did not really go into that, but I can tell you all about it. It is like a random number, and it's reusing that random number, but you can predict the answers from the first random that is sent. So you can actually stripe them out of the authentication, and then you have 64 bits of key stream. So the authentication leaks already the key, because you only need 50 bits to get the key. 50 bits is enough, and you have like 64 bits of key stream. So in one authentication, you know already what the key was. Then the random number challenges. I mean, we've seen it. It is not really a random number if you only have 65,000 possibilities. The proprietary non-public algorithm is quite public now. The guys from Germany did a very nice job to give a head start and I guess we finished it, and it's pretty out of the blue there, so everybody can learn what's actually on with this card, and maybe does not make a mistake in the future. But the encrypted communication is not really encrypted if you can, of course, know the key already at the end of the authentication, where you there already know the key. Though then the rest is not encrypted because you can decrypt it on the fly. The obfuscated parity information, well, that's not really a security measure, right? I mean, it's now known how they do it, so you can actually do it yourself. And then we have like a hardware implementation, but that was like maybe 2 years ago, but last year there was a software implementation, and maybe next year there is even a JavaScript implementation, I don't know, but and then the last one, which I said like, oh, let's say, send only one message in the plane and the rest will be encrypted. Well, when they're using that one, they even make a bigger mistake because they're giving away the key, almost, what they showed with the card here. So, getting back to that fixed unique identifier, that's the only thing that's left. Since there are like 5 different MIFARE clones already available in China, Russia, and I guess different countries which I cannot really translate in Google Translate yet, but then there probably will be next year a card where you can set your own UID, and then you have like a very mixed up card where you can do everything with. Well, what's the conclusion? The MIFARE Classic actually just broken beyond repair. And you've seen this, you can actually see like every attack you can do on a cheap reader. In a few years you can run it on your mobile phone and send it over. And we all remember that security by obscurity is not really the way to work through. I mean, you all know it from the DVD, the Bluetooth, and the key lock thingies, which is the car security stuff. Well, then it's maybe nice to hide your failure if you just don't tell how it works. But that's a question maybe. We do not know, of course, if that is what you want to say there. Well, there is so much NDAs in this chip business and in that RFID business. It's hard to get by documentation. So it's I've started an open source community for a library for this white reader and for this Proxmark, and just trying to get it more in the open, more more actually open discussion about what the security on that RFID field is and what is actually in the field used, because can we trust it? Now, you can come by if you have any questions offline, let's say there are some readers where you can play with what I said, and it's on the end of the camping Z, so I guess on the end of Har. It's the farthest away camping site, but there was space for us out there. On the internet you can find us on these websites. Yeah, there is nice information if you want to learn more about it. Thank you all.
Do we have questions? Must be many. Here's one.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. The first one, that attack you showed us, it was offline attack. I mean, do you need to sniff communication between RFID reader, official reader with the key and card, or it's pure offline attack? I mean,
sorry,
my question is, you shown us one practical attack.
Yeah.
And this attack was offline. I mean, do you need a reader with some key or not?
No. This is a card-only attack. But that doesn't mean you only need a card, and you need, of course, a reader. But you put the reader down, you lay the card on top of it, you run your tool, and it gets the keys out of it.
Yeah, because as I know, home I did one practical attack. I used Proxmark to sniff communication between reader and card, and there is a Crypto1 implementation. Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a different kind of attack you've shown us.
This is
Different one, I mean.
preferred.
Different.
Oh, this is different. Oh, actually, no, this is the, no, this is, in crypto, there are some implementation. I didn't really look in the latest version, but the guy who wrote this, that software actually implemented the attacks which are written in the scientific papers. And this one we published in May on, in Oakland, in the Security and Privacy Conference. So it is implemented in crypto, I guess. I didn't really look at it, the implementation. But it's not really different from it, but it's a different implementation because it was our own test values, I guess.
Hello. So the attack you showed just then relied on block 0 having a default key, and then you were rolling back the keys for the remaining blocks. Does the attack still work if you don't know the key for the first block?
No, that will not work if you do not know the key of a block, not the first block, doesn't matter which block. But what I said, 90% of the cards out there have it, the first block known. If you don't have that one, then you need to do the other attack, which I've shown, that you can just communicate to it and it gets an error message, you leak 12 bits of information, you have to interfere that like a differential attack. But you can use that the same, and when you actually did it for like 5 minutes or something, then you have one key, and with that one key you can again recover all the keys.
We have time for one more question, a brief one. Yay.
I was lying. It's one question, but it might not be a brief answer. After the disclosure of all kinds of problems with the MIFARE cards, there was a lot of talk in the Tweede Kamer and in the news about the attack. And even TNO became involved, and they tried to test it and God knows what. But how would you describe your experience with, well, basically the government and security professionals paid to test this, in trying to understand what was wrong and how to fix it? Was there a lot of denial, or was it really, oh yeah, you're right, and we're going to do something about this? Did they catch on really quickly, or did you really have to say, hey, this is really a problem, you might want to look at it?
Well, it's quite interesting that, I guess everybody heard the question he said? Okay. Well, I was really surprised that I've talked to the government and thereby even to the Secret Service, and they really surprised me because I was like trying to explain what we attacking here and what the vulnerabilities were, and I was every time I was halfway in my sentence, they filled it out for me, and it was like, oh my God, you're reading my mind or something. But they really they impressed me how good they knew about cryptos and attacks there. So, but they actually didn't do it on this card. So, but they really were interested to know what was wrong there. And yeah, that was good. And they made nice decisions after that because they already started to replace all that is used in the government. Well, there are different parts and different parts in the government that are used for, like public transport ministry, where they try to set an over chip card on the ground. Well, there are other money issues involved and less security problems, so they say, well, I'll just keep it this way. And well, actually, when I try to explain the manufacturer in the start, I only get to talk with maybe the higher level, which has the most access to documents and stuff, and they knew about how it worked, but they actually did not understand what I'm trying to explain. So it was their product, but I was like, yeah, it's broken there and there, and I had to do that for like a few times before they actually got it. Though they have actually crypto guys working there, but they were not really allowed to look at this because, yeah, if they looked at it, they also shoot like holes in it immediately, and that is what actually not really was their business case. So, okay, thank you.